Hey folks, with us today, Alane, founder of Arvo and serial entrepreneur. Alane, super happy to have you on.
Thank you, Nicholas. I'm loving being on this podcast.
Awesome. Let's start with your backstory. Tell me a bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
It has been a fun and, being a serial entrepreneur, you try things, some things don't work. Other times you're like, wow, this is really working. I'm going to stick with this. So I've had probably 6 different companies over the last 20 years, and I've had 2 exits with 2 of them. 2 of them I've closed. But each one, you're learning through it, and each company is different, or I wouldn't sell the companies I had, if I really just wanted to stick with it. So, it's been a lot of fun and some really hard days, but I've gone from being in tech to trying to do retail. And I found out I really prefer tech over a retail company. And after my exits, I dabbled in a food company and again realized I really just love tech. And so started Arvo.
Interesting. What brought you initially into entrepreneurship?
When I was even younger and people, when you're a kid, people ask like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say I want to be a CEO and I want to wear cute outfits. Like it wasn't even like, I don't know what I'm going to do to get there, but that was my goal in life. And, you have a lot of different ways you can get to being a CEO. And I just learned in my early 20s that I really just like doing things my way and experimenting and failing and learning and doing it at my own pace rather than working for somebody. So I started my first company, I think when I was 24 or 25, after working for a couple of people and thinking I can do what they're doing and better. So, it was just kind of natural. My dad was an entrepreneur too. So I just kind of always saw him doing things and being successful. So I figured if he could do it, I could do it.
That's a great thing. I think having entrepreneurs in the family or like in your close circle is super valuable.
Yeah, it really shows it can be done.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have anyone in my circle. Like for me, I didn't even know that like being a business owner is like a thing basically.
Yeah.
So really a different lifestyle. Awesome. But then let's jump to today and to your current tech venture. Like tell us a bit about Arvo, like what it does and who's it for.
So we've pivoted a lot after launching it. So when we originally launched it, it was during COVID, and we were coming in and helping people, their business with operations and workflows and processes and helping. And we realized, well, one thing that they needed was documentation. They had no process documentation. And we were looking at what was out there, and everything really looks a lot like a text document, Google Doc or something. And we thought, man, with the way people learn these days, they're short attention spans. They want to be able to skim. It needs to be eye-catching. And so we launched Arvo for that. And as we started getting it into the marketplace, our customers were saying, wow, this is even better for sending professional documents to clients. Like I don't have to send something as a document anymore. It can look really cool and designed in Arvo. And so it really started becoming a client-facing platform. And then we created libraries where it could be a client portal that was branded for that client. And so it's really been evolving, and customers will still use it for some internal documentation and things, but where they get really excited and where we're happy to, transition to is to that more sales and account management approach.
I would love to double click on that because I would guess that in the moment making the decision to pivot from internal tool, I mean, your initial vision of it towards like being a client facing thing wasn't as easy as it now, like in retrospect, sounds like. Tell us, walk us through that decision.
Yeah, that is really something great to dive into, because I see this with founders a lot, is that you don't want to let go of your original idea. And we were in that same spot. We didn't want to let go. And it has been 2 years in the making to transition that. And we're going through the new website now to launch with this new verbiage, making it client facing. And it's really difficult because you come up with this idea, you invest a ton of money into building your platform, whether you're bootstrapped or you're raising money, that still, it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And you keep wanting to say, well, it's missing this feature or it's missing this. But you have these clients like literally yelling with excitement, like, we are loving it for this, but you don't want to let it go. And so it's taken us a couple of years of convincing ourselves that, no, this is the route that we need to go. It is a better fit for this because that's where the clients want to use it.
What was the thing that was holding you back the most? What the more that you weren't sure if like the clients are right with their perspective, and that you maybe just like got the wrong clients telling you that, like, or like what was the blocker for you to basically not making the decision earlier that you ended up with?
The biggest thing was it the audience fit? Were we going after the wrong audience? And so they were using it for this, but then we would get a $250 million client. They started using it for internal processes, and then their sales team started using it for client facing. So it was like we got to where we were with enough of a range of what we thought was our target audience. And we just kept seeing this continue to surface where they started using it for client facing. They were larger companies, smaller companies. And so once we saw that pattern repeat enough with a broad amount of clients, then we thought, okay, it's time to pivot. Because, when you're building software, you have an initial idea and you think you know who your target market is. And so we did that, as anybody does. And the clients, what we wanted to have happen is we wanted bigger clients using it because they're going to pay you more money. And it took us a little while to get there because you do have to have enough feature sets, for a company to use you. But once we got there and we're seeing the same thing, it's like, we have to let this go or we're going to continue to suffer.
If you need to hire the right developers and ship fast, then React Squad is for you. A boutique agency that specializes in React and only works with fast growth startups. Visit reactsquad.io to learn more.
That makes a ton of sense. And then how big is the company right now in terms of employees or revenue? Anything you can share about that?
We're at 14 employees, and our revenue is, if we're just looking at Arvo, we're a couple of million in. We do have a services side, and that is what has helped us to continue bootstrapping. I bootstrap all of my companies, and we always evolve our software product out of the services that we provide. And so we have a services side where we consult on operations, work management systems. Like, I don't know if you use Asana or Monday or ClickUp. We come in and help companies put in workflows, train their team properly. And so that has helped us continue to be bootstrapped and expand our development team without having to raise money.
And then is it always in the same entity, or like how do you quote unquote funnel the money from A to B? Because I think a lot of people have services companies, see a problem and then like go after it. But it always sounds way easier than it is in the actual day-to-day. So how did you manage that tension between like basically needing to make money to have payroll and then investing in the products?
Oh, I mean, it's a constant battle every single day. And we are constantly just like, are we spending too many resources on this side where we need to be spending on this side? And we're just, just like any founder, just doing the best that we can with the resources that we have. And at the end of the day, right now, we spend more of our resources on our services side until we can flip-flop and have more revenue coming in from the software product. Because we do have a team and we want to make payroll. And we just know that, especially right now where we've figured out a better fit for Arvo and we need to make a lot of marketing changes and verbiage changes, it's going to be a little while until we have those resources showing in the dollar amount and having those people sign up. And we're going to do a lot of test marketing with landing pages and things. So for right now, we're letting that services side carry us.
And then one more question around that. Is the product team like in a squad by itself, or is it in a way like some people do, like make a mix of like 50% services, 50% product work? Like how is that like split between those 14 people?
The only team members that we have split are our testing team, because we use Arvo with our services. So our team knows how to use Arvo inside and out. We will have some of our team test the new features coming out. But with having done 2 other platforms, really, it's such a hard shift for people to go from I'm managing clients or I'm doing production work to something on the platform. And so we really try to keep it separated, and we will use freelance teams or hiring on Upwork, things like that, so we can just keep our pod of software development or whatever it might be with a product and still keep it agile so that we're not spending too much. So we're able to do that instead of trying to overlap on the services and Arvo side, because it just gets to be brain fatigue. You're exhausted from like jumping around, and nobody really does a great job of jumping around. But we found that with testing, that can be something at the end of the day, they know the software product from being in it. Like, it's not that much of a demand on their time or their mental capabilities.
And then coming from the team to you as the founder, how do you manage your time between those two?
I mean, I work a lot. I'm a workaholic.
You just work double the time, basically.
Yeah, you just work double. I've gotten a lot better at it. You know, in my first companies, I had a lot more time. I didn't have kids. You know, I was just managing my team and my company. Now I have a son, married, and it's just very different with time management. But in my day, I do use time blocks. Like yesterday, I needed to do marketing material. So I blocked off 2 hours on my calendar for the specific marketing campaign that I needed to work on. And other than that, I just try to manage my day. On Thursdays, is my day to do services work. And on Fridays, I let that day be more of let me just tackle things that I didn't get done during the week. So it might be some services stuff. It might be some Arvo stuff. So I try to manage it by day and then by time blocks. And then sometimes I just work at the end of the day to catch up.
I mean, that makes a ton of sense, because we ourselves have like an agency where I'm actively the CEO, and then a couple of other smaller things where it's like quite a distraction sometimes.
Yeah. And I'll say too, one of the things that I've really been working on the last few years is letting go of things that are just sucking my time. So that might look like being a board member where I'm not being fulfilled anymore, being on that board, and it's just becoming more of a negative feeling for me, and letting that go. I don't need to be on something that I'm giving my time and it's not offering me any value as a person. And so I've just gotten better at being like, no, I can't do that. No, I don't have capacity to put that into my day. And then trying to manage the things that I can handle.
Do you have a framework for making those decisions? Just like seeing what drains your energy, what gives you energy, or how do you make those decisions?
If I can make it from the start of the question, I have a friend, and she told me this, and I've been using this, and it's working for me. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a hell no. And so if at the beginning, if I'm kind of like, not sure, like, no, that's a hell no, because I am not excited about it. I'm not feeling fulfilled just by the question. So no, I can't do it. If I'm in it, then I have to start asking myself, like, where, maybe if I'm not feeling the value, am I offering value? And is it worth my time? And at that point, it's like, no, then I have to let it go. And I try to be as respectful as I can at getting out of that situation. And it can be difficult. I'm a people pleaser. And so I tend to hold on to things longer than I should because I don't want to let people down.
I can totally understand that. And then now that it's far from your first rodeo, what are the things that you do most differently compared to your first startups?
I try to not work myself 20 hours a day anymore, and I try to rest. I really put more effort into how my team is managed, and not used to, I'd be like, why won't you work another 2 hours during the day? Like, my expectations of your workload were so non-empathetic. Like, I'm working this much, why aren't you? And now I am very sensitive about how much I put on my team, how many different directions I'm putting them in. And I'll even work through an idea longer before taking it to the team so that they don't feel like I'm ping-ponging them around and exhausting them with, another one of Alane's ideas, another one of Alane's tests. So I try to do a little bit of the legwork first because our team is small. It's not like I have a 5-person team that I'm like, hey, I've got this test idea. It's your job to go and do it. My team is really small, so I don't want to exhaust them early on. And that's where I try to I want my team to stay on longer. When you have turnover, you're constantly retraining. You're constantly having to reteach things, and things fall through the cracks because there's no way that when you have a team member leaving and you're bringing one on, that it's going to be perfect from day one. So as a CEO, as I'm a leader and a manager, I'm just trying to keep my team on long term, but in a way that fulfills everybody. Like, I'm not taking everything on as the hero and trying to fix everybody's problem. I'm just trying to have expectations that this doesn't need to be done at the speed of light, that it can be done in 3 days, and it's going to be better because I'm not putting so much pressure on people or myself.
So in a way, are you trying to just build like a calmer work environment and a more focused work environment, or like what? Because like I think the expectation management thing is always so tricky, because on the one side, you in a way need to push your team sometimes, but overdoing it is like super bad, of course, also. So
yeah, I want a calmer work environment where people enjoy coming to work. That high stress, my previous company, it was so high stress. We still had long-term employees. I mean, our average tenure was 7 years and our company was 11 years old. So, we had people stick with us, but towards the end of that company, the last 4 years, I'll say that's where we started investing in software to make it easier for people. We put in a ticketing system so that when people were on vacation, somebody else could handle their workload. And we put in Asana at the time. And so we started putting these things in because I don't want a high stress environment. Stress is a horrible, horrible thing to carry. And, that's where it kicks off not just mental stress, but also physical stress. Like, I started breaking out in eczema all over my hands and my arms because of carrying stress. And as soon as I started reducing the amount of stress, it started to go away. And I realized I'm doing this to my team members as well. And so the calmer work environment, but we still have expectations. We still have goals. Like, it's not like you come in and you just do whatever you want. Like, we have, processes that we follow, expectations that need to happen, but I'm not trying to overwork them anymore.
So basically just finding the balance of getting what the business needs out of them, basically, but then making sure they're not all like stressed out and burn out.
Yeah. And I had to realize too that they're not me. Something that I can do in an hour, it's me. I'm running the business because I'm me. And it might take them 3 times as longer, but I didn't have to do it. And now I could focus on something else. That was something I had to learn over time too.
That makes a ton of sense. And then let's switch gears again and come back to Arvo. How on the growth and marketing side, because you mentioned marketing materials a couple of times now, how are you actively trying to grow Arvo right now?
We do a lot of outreach with the networks that we're in. So there's a couple of CEO groups that I'm in that are around the world. And so I will reach out to them. And initially, I was just reaching out to them like, can I get your feedback? And using LinkedIn a lot. I use a ton of LinkedIn outreach because our target market, we're B2B, and our decision makers are either the COO or the CEO. Typically, unless it's a larger company and they're looking for their department, something like we have. And so I did a lot of just outreach, and then we did a lot of Google AdWords because people are looking for these search terms. And so that's been one path, and then getting outreach. And so what I was able to do from doing so many feedback calls early on is I identified a sales process that then I could hire salespeople to repeat. And so they still use LinkedIn. We do that a ton for outreach and finding the decision makers at companies. And I have that sales team just reaching out, staying on top of things. And then we just keep evolving. What are we hearing after we do new features? What are people gravitating towards? And then how can we evolve it? And then talking to our customers. That's how we found out so many of them are using it for this client-facing thing. And so we look at our top users. We have within our admin dashboard, we're able to see who our top users are and our top companies that are using it the most. And so every 6 months or so, we do a check-in and like, hey, what are things that y'all are doing? How are you using it? And that's the coolest stuff because they're doing it in ways that we might not have ever thought about. And that's been able to help us write case studies and evolve our product on, what features are we not thinking about because we're not talking to our customers.
And is that the product manager doing it, the CS person doing it, you doing it? Like, who specifically has like the responsibility of making sure that you talk to customers as a company?
We have about 4 team members that do it. I do it with some of our larger clients that I might have brought on from our CEO groups. Our account managers do it because our account managers are using it. We use it ourselves with our clients, and then we help our clients. If they're a services client, then we're helping implement it as well. So we've gotten, kind of everybody on board. If you're talking to a customer, then let's hear what they're saying. We have a product roadmap that we go in and put in a request or an idea, and then we can vote on it as a company, or, maybe it's not a company-wide thing. Maybe it's just me and my co-founder, we're like, yes, like I like that vision for it. But we have a process for it, and we have anybody client-facing is on there, is talking to customers and getting feedback.
I mean, that makes a ton of sense. And especially like sharing those learnings internally across teams, it's like so important.
Yeah, I think whether you're a service company or a product company, if you have account managers, you have to break down the silo that they're keeping the information to themselves. When I had my previous software company, I had a team of 20 account managers, and the most of our weekly meeting that we did was telling stories about our clients. Because when you can tell stories, people buy. We don't want to be just thrown facts all the time. We want to hear stories. We want to hear stories of success, and we want to know what failed so I don't go and sell that to my client, in the future. And so that's what I really want to do here again is keep telling those stories, tell what works, because then when I get on a sales call, I can say, you know what we did for this client, they're using it like this. We did this for them, and this is what's worked. And so having that communication between your team members, I found, is the most valuable sales tool.
And then do you record those calls and share it internally? Or how do you tactically make sure that the knowledge gets spread?
We'll have the people on the call, and then we do record the calls, and then we use Arvo, where I'll drop in the recording of that video in there. So if somebody wasn't there that day, they can watch it. And I will also flag certain ones that were really valuable. So when we have a new employee start, it's part of their training. And they might not have to watch the whole video. I'll just flag that time segment and say, part of your training, watch this.
That's so smart.
You just keep learning and keep improving.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, entrepreneurship is not always like sunshine and rainbows. So like, what's something you're struggling with right now?
A couple of things. Changing our product fit and changing everything is a bit scary for me. Like I told you, it's taken me 2 years to get to this point. And so I have fear that, we're going to do all this to change it, and then we're not going to be bringing on the customers, and that we're going to be setting ourselves back months of work that we weren't pushing forward our other way. That one is extremely scary for me. Time management, as always, that's so hard. I never feel like I'm doing enough. Always feel like I'm letting people down because I didn't get more things done. My videographer, on Monday was like, can you get me some things to work on? And I'm like, today I just can't, like there is not any room in my day. So that wears on me a lot. And then I'm always wanting to be pushing ahead. And so one of my biggest obstacles is looking back at what we've done and like looking and seeing, what worked in the past, because I just want to keep moving forward. And that can really bite us, because then I'm going, well, I just came across this. I've already done this once, but I didn't want to take the time to go back and reassess what we had done. And so I think as a founder, we need to be able to do both. You can't just keep pushing forward and not looking back, because then you're going to keep making not necessarily mistakes, but you're wasting time. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. I tend to be wasting time by redoing things that I'd already put thoughts towards.
Love that transparency. And then as a final question before we wrap up, where can people find you online?
Oh gosh, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on there. Alane Boyd. Arvo is askarvo.com, and would love to chat and hear from you.
Amazing. Alane, thanks a ton for taking the time and coming on today.
Thank you, Nicholas. This was awesome.
If you like this episode, then you'll love the SaaS Operator, a weekly newsletter brought to you by Early Node, with actionable insights from SaaS experts in the industry delivered right to your inbox every Tuesday for free. Visit earlynote.com to subscribe.